Yes, November 1st, Deep End de los Muertos tonight. Deep End of the Dead. I don't know. Are your teams dead? Hey, Adam, we just talked about, okay, this is what we're going to do. Like we're in the huddle and then we turn the light on and now we go. But I did want to talk about maybe right before we start talking about all these awesome trades.
Yeah.
What to do if your team is dead. Deep End de los Muertos. What to do if, like, say you're me and you have a main event team that's 1-7.
Yeah.
Is it better to quit or, keep grinding and go for guys where the 7-1 team is going to be mad and go, what is this guy doing picking up whoever? So let me ask you that right off the top. We have so many good trades. You already know what they are. But Claypool, Hawkinson, what the Dolphins did, Edmonds, Wilson. We'll get into all of it next. Mike Schopp, Adam Krautwurst, thanks for watching and listening. Powered by Draft Sharks. We are the Deep End. It's funny, like this is any two friends. You hear, say, for me, it was the Claypool trade. And I, a friend is going to text another friend, Claypool to the Bears, to make sure they know, to break the news. It's always exciting to be the person to break the news.
Absolutely.
But on game day, Adam's like, all right, what are we doing for topics? And I text Claypool to the Bears. And then I text, wait a minute. That wasn't me telling you about that trade because you're Adam Krautwurst and you already knew about it. I was just putting it on the list. So, because you have friends who, 5 hours later, text you about these football trades. And what do we call those friends, Adam?
Acquaintances. They are acquaintances.
They are now. That's right. That's right.
I love it. And I hate being last to the part. I was listening. Whenever there's trades and stuff like this, I always tune in, and you're on the radio. I always tune in because I'm like, Mike's gonna have extra energy today, and I can't wait to listen. And I'm listening, and you're talking about the Nyheim Hines trade, and you break the news about the safety just before my phone tells me, and you're like, the Bills have a trade. I'm like, another one. I'm like, oh my god, who is it? And all of a sudden it pops up on my phone. I'm like, oh, it's a safety. Oh, who cares?
Could it have been? It wasn't going to be Cam Akers or
right.
Brandon Cooks. Maybe it could have been Brandon Cooks.
Whoever. Right.
Oh. But yeah. Well, it was quite a day. We'll get into these trades like we said, but if you're out of it,
yeah.
Are the rules the same? Or there's the rules and then there's the code. And so I have a bad main event team. There's almost no chance, but there's always some chance. And there's 4 weeks left. And this team has Dak Prescott and Justin Fields. And Prescott is on bye. So what I should do if I'm playing to win, which I think is the point, even if you're way back, is cut Prescott because I'm not going to make it, with him on my bench. I need everything. I've got a bunch of bye week guys, right? So I think the optimal play would be to cut Dak Prescott, ride with Fields or someone else next week, whatever you do. But you're done with Dak for this week. You take your chances and sign some running back or receiver that you would start. But what does it look like, Adam, if you're cutting Dak Prescott at 1-7? It might look to somebody like collusion.
Yeah, I would. So I think it depends on the league. In a main event, I wouldn't cut Dak Prescott because you're affecting the overall, right? That's where I'm always. I think with a team that's 1-7, I think you should continue to set your lineup to for an honest, putting forth an honest effort there, because you don't want to, you would not want to make a playoffs because a team you needed to lose faced a team with 3 guys on their bench starting, so I think that's safe to say. And I think you would at least do that. But I think when you're grinding waivers from multiple teams, like I know both of us are, I think it's perfectly okay to not waste 20 minutes on a team that's 1-7 when you can use that energy towards a team that's 5-2. And so maybe you just make sure you have a starting defense and a kicker and all that type stuff. And then to go kind of back to your Dak point is from an overall, because you probably have some other main events going or whatever, or even just for the sake of the tournament, I wouldn't want to drop Prescott and have a team that's really good, but they're a quarterback away from $1 million, have them go pick up Prescott and something like that.
I like that point. I was struggling with this argument until that point.
Yeah.
Because, of course you're setting the lineup, and I don't think how much time it costs me should matter. Because really everybody's got to figure that out for themselves.
Yeah.
And I'll find the time to do it. But if I am not cutting my backup quarterback because it looks bad, that, in the Prescott,
Yeah,
that I'm not sure about, but the fact that somebody else that I might face off another team that makes the playoffs,
that's right.
that's probably right. That's
That
probably right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant about the yeah. I mean, I don't think they're going to suspect collusion because again, that's kind of iffy because I've seen get players much more like there's a main event league that I'm in that has Marquise Brown on waivers that I'm just salivating over. So there's players that are more valuable that are on waivers than Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and I always think like if somebody wants to accuse of collusion, let them. I'll defend myself.
Sure.
Even if it's somehow decided independently that I did it. I don't know what's going to happen to me. Like, there's no collusion. I don't know. Well, actually, I do know another guy in the main, but he doesn't need my help. Um, all right, good point on the last thing. I think that saved me from doing that because I might have done it. You know what I mean, though? Like,
Yeah,
what
no, I get it.
I've got to win. It's not even wins. You can't make the playoffs on wins when you're 1-7. 5-7 is not going to have any chance at all of making the playoffs by records. The record's irrelevant once you lose even 5. I think
Right.
the record's
Probably.
irrelevant.
Correct.
But I'm
Yes.
12th in points.
Yeah.
So I would need some sort of like on average 50-point gain a week over like basically everyone else.
Right.
And I'm less than 1%.
Right. For sure.
All right, let's talk trades.
Let's do it. Claypool.
I liked this for Pittsburgh. I've been listening to Claypool rumors for a month,
Yeah.
maybe a year. And for them to get an early second or at least a mid-second is probably a good job. But I do like the player, and I'm excited about it for Fields.
Yeah, no, that was the first two things I thought of. Claypool was like the last piece to the puzzle on the Claypool trade. It was we talked all summer. We've been talking all year about how is there too many mouths to feed in Pittsburgh? Are there too many mouths to feed there with the talent that they have at quarterback? And that's what we found. Like, man, we need one of these guys to, not we need, but in order for a player to pop off there, there's going to have to be an injury or a trade. And we got a trade, right? So which is perfect. It works for everybody. There were just too many mouths there to feed. Now, Claypool getting 6, 7, 8 targets a game, sometimes more. Now, if you can divvy those up between the two studs you got there in Johnson and Pickens, maybe it's Freiermuth, it's something like that. But it's just, Claypool demanded some targets there and some carries and stuff like that. To be able to get that out of Pittsburgh, now we feel much more comfortable starting Deontay Johnson. Not that we weren't going to start him, but, perfect example, Pickens. I was forced with injuries and bye weeks to decide between George Pickens and Isaiah McKenzie last week in a couple different leagues. Some leagues I went McKenzie, some leagues I went Pickens. Pickens puts up to 0. McKenzie, had 2 touches and scored 8 points. Really didn't, it wasn't a league winning week for me, but now you feel much more comfortable starting a guy like Pickens, who's, I think, eventually will be the best receiver on that team if he isn't already talent wise. So good for Pickens. And as far as Claypool getting to Chicago, I think you said it perfectly there too. I think it's better for Fields. It gives him a bigger bodied option. It gives him more weapons. I mean, anything that they would have gotten was an upgrade. We don't care about the second round pick. We don't care about that for fantasy, right? So
Sorry.
No, it's fine. No, I
like this trade for Pittsburgh, but yeah, I'll leave that out next time.
Yeah, that's right. Send that out the door. Okay. But from a perspective, and I know you like to bring these type of topics up, and you're really good at this, is how does the Bears view Claypool, right? I mean, they gave up a second round pick for him, so that factors maybe more into the dynasty perspective, but it's nice that Claypool, and now they were going on a bye week, and now he does not have do the Bears have a bye this week? I don't think they do. So now maybe if you're in yeah. So maybe there's leagues where you're in an absolute pinch. Now you don't want to start a guy who just got traded to somebody, but there's rosters where I've got like one startable guy on my bench. So maybe it's a guy like Claypool. So good for Fields, gives them more weapons. That's never a bad thing for a guy like Fields. And maybe he's better. Maybe he'll pull the trigger more on a big bodied receiver. They showed some film when he was on Monday night or a primetime game a couple weeks ago where, there's receivers NFL open over the middle and he just doesn't want to pull the trigger. Maybe he's got a big bodied guy. Maybe he'll pull the trigger. So I like this for Fields. I love this for Pickens and Deontay Johnson.
This one's good for everybody.
Yes.
Except Equinemius St. Brown.
Except Equinemius. Oh, poor Equinemius.
Get to Ian Hartitz with that one, because his bit is this trade is really the one thing people are not saying about this trade is how good it is for Amon-Ra St. Brown. The one thing they're not saying about the Claypool trade is how it's not good for Equinemius St. Brown. Yeah, excited to see, yes, to the Steeler points. And also Fields is kind of trending up. Last 2 weeks have been good. People are starting to talk about whether he's the quarterback, the quarterback winner from that draft in 21. And that's kind of insane, because last year you might have put him last or next to Zach Wilson. I mean, even Lance, who wasn't injured but on the bench, gave you some signs. But it changes fast, I guess.
Yeah, and just another little offshoot here. The Steelers have the 7th best receiver schedule down the stretch here. So they got the bye week, but then they've got a couple nice matchups, including Atlanta, including the Raiders in the fantasy playoffs. In fact, Atlanta is the first round of most playoffs, week 13 for the high stakes stuff. So they have the 7th best. So that's good for Pickens, good for Johnson.
I like it. Good point. All right. The first trade of the morning, TJ Hawkinson to Minnesota. Claypool's been rumored forever. Hawkinson was never rumored at all being traded to the Vikings, who lose Irv Smith, and he's a cut. He's probably out for the regular season.
Yeah.
You can forget that. But Hawkinson, I'm excited for him with the Vikings, with Cousins, Kevin O'Connell. I think there's room there, even though they haven't done a lot with Irv. Detroit, what is Detroit thinking? My thought on this is Dan Campbell was a tight end. And for even Hawkinson being a first-round pick, going into his 5th-year extension next year that's over $9 million, that maybe Campbell, for whatever this is worth, it's worth something. He has the job at the present time, didn't want his starting tight end to be TJ Hawkinson for whatever reason. Never really commanded big targets, but did have spike weeks. You definitely could have done worse than Hawkinson over the years when he's been on the field. So what do you see here?
Yeah, it's interesting. Or maybe Dan Campbell, being the tight end that he is, thinks he's got something in James Mitchell or Brock Wright. Maybe Mitchell scored last week, I think.
Mitchell played, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he likes what he sees there. Coming out of the bye week a couple weeks ago, and being able to get him involved. He scores, like, all right, I like what I have here. They got I don't want to say a king's ransom for Hawkinson, but they got a bunch of high picks for him. And so maybe he's like, hey, listen, I can get, kind of like those coaches that think they can get anything out of any quarterback. Maybe he thinks he can get anything out of Mitchell or Wright. Now he certainly didn't get the most out of Hawkinson. I mean, I think he probably could have gotten more out of Hawkinson, but I think a change of scenery will be good for him, for TJ Hawkinson. Goes into a really nice offense where it's just 2 other receivers really in the passing game. Thielen's getting old, banged up, and I think that so I think Hawkinson will be a nice piece there. It's going to take him a while. I don't know if these trades we all get excited about, right? But other than running back, I think it's really hard for that player to go in and really be a big fantasy piece, because they got to learn an offense, man, and it's in tight end position, for whatever it's worth, for rookies, takes him a couple of years. Hawkinson's not a rookie, but he's coming into a new offense, a new team. So we'll see how that works. I know people have been talking about, it's a downgrade for Thielen in the red zone. I don't necessarily think it is. I mean, Cousins has a rapport with Thielen inside the red zone, inside the 10. They have a thing. Thielen scored a ton of touchdowns. So I don't think that's going to go away, especially for a new player. Now, will they scheme up some stuff for Hawkinson? Maybe. But I think this is more, to me, it's more of a dynasty thing than it would be an in-season thing, because he does have to learn a whole new offense. So we'll see. I wouldn't be too excited coming out of the gate.
Yep. Dynasty, I feel like it's mostly a push.
Sure.
I like how you said you always want to consider what is the team's investment. And with Minnesota's, it's some money, and it's a second, a third, some picks. It's not a first-round pick. I would think they intend to have Hawkinson around for several years, but not for long will it be a matter of, okay, well, you spent this on this trade. I think they see an opportunity this year to win a playoff game or two, and that's just not happened too often with Green Bay down. And this is the kind of trade I like. I'm sorry to mention non-fantasy sort of viewpoints, but I do like it for Minnesota. I like the player. And one point Bulldog made today with me on WGR was it gives Detroit a little bit more clout with which to trade for a quarterback next year. Now, they could have the number 1 overall pick the way it stands right now. So you wouldn't need that if that happens. But, those extra picks are good, and the good GMs use them to move around.
Yep.
All right. Calvin Ridley.
Yes. What do you think?
I don't know.
I think this is more dynasty too. I think for sure.
Of course,
obviously.
Obviously, it's cool that there's a team that wanted to invest in him.
Yep.
And it didn't cost them very much. Didn't really cost them an asset this year, and they're losing anyway. So I like that for Ridley. I'm somebody who's had 2 or 3 teams kind of stymied by having Ridley last year too, and this year, of course, not playing at all. So, that's probably Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson again, and they do not have wide receiver figured out at all. It's bad. Like Lawrence is getting criticized, but I mean Marvin Jones and Zay Jones, Kirk is fine, but just sort of almost underneath those guys. Evan Ingram, like what do we really expect here? Lawrence to me in Dynasty is definitely somebody I would be buying because I think they're definitely going the next year with him. And, this trade helps, and ETN is doing well. So 1 more year of coaching, I think this is probably good for Lawrence's value.
Yeah, certainly good for Lawrence's value. I think Ridley will be the best receiver on the team next year, coming out. And so he's not coming off an injury, anything like that. So he should be ready to go and ready to, prove himself. Did I hear too that the bet he made involved the Jaguars?
I think so. Yeah.
What are the odds? Speaking of collusion, what do we got going on here?
Hopefully he was on them.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Maybe that's what made the trade possible was that he's on board.
So yeah,
He better not be hurt. He better not be hurt, by the way.
Right.
After all, 2 years off.
I know. My gosh, can you imagine?
Unless he's Michael Thomas.
But I think it's good, right? Who hates playing football? I think it's good if for his dynasty value because if Arthur Smith is going to stay in Atlanta, which he probably will, you don't want to have a receiver on a team that throws the ball 12 times where they're down 21 points. Like get him out of there, right? So any team would have been an upgrade for his stock. And the Jaguars, I think are fine. Trevor Lawrence, right? It's certainly good for Trevor Lawrence's stock. Not good for Kirk. Not good for any of the other receivers there. I don't think it affects Evan Ingram at all. Although Evan Ingram's, leading the team in targets the last month or so. So, but no, it's good. I've got Kirk I have Ridley on a dynasty team I was holding. And so it's nice to see that the NFL teams are still thinking about Calvin Ridley and getting him involved in the next season.
Yeah, that's an investment enough to to not worry too much about whether his team is upset with him or kind of done with them. And there was that chance in Atlanta, especially if they make the playoffs and he becomes maybe sort of you have to prove it or something like that at that point. Now that's sort of off the table, which is good.
Yep.
All right. So a couple of receivers so far, Hawkinson, the tight end. Let's talk running backs. We'll start with Nyheim Hines to Buffalo for Zach Moss. By the way, we didn't make a graphic for Zach Moss. I don't know what happens to Moss in Indianapolis, but he's not going to play the Nyheim Hines role.
No,
with the Colts. He could have played that with the Bills had he been sort of suited for that.
Sure.
But I think sort of the obvious here is that it's nothing negative for Hines, and it can only be positive being on a better offense. I think it could even be better than that. I mean, the Bills have been so persistent getting this type of player on their team, and they're a team that has so much. They don't have the slot receiver position figured out yet. And we've talked about that all year. I think most of the voices in fantasy were saying Isaiah McKenzie. I was definitely like, no, he's never been given that full-time role with the Bills. He's worth a shot once in a while, and he does score, but just doesn't play often enough. And they had Crowder, and now it's Shakir. And here, even Sunday night, Shakir doesn't catch a pass. McKenzie gets in, but very little target share or anything. I think, Hines is a running back. It's a running joke in fantasy, running backs in the slot. Coaches pump them up. but Hines has actually played that position for Indianapolis and, been usable on a team that you don't think of wide receivers for. They've just Pittman now, but over the course of his career, it's hard to sort of I get to T.Y. Hilton like next to think of sort of receivers on the Colts. So there was an opening for him, and they trusted him with that role. And I think that could be part of his usage with the Bills is playing in the slot. I know what that sounds like to fantasy players because they always hear that from coaches, but I think it's only good for him if that's not too obvious.
Yeah, I mean, I said it today. I think he's now the best running back on the Bills. So he's the best running back on the best offense in football. So whatever that's worth, I think he's the most talented back there. I think, I've heard, you get trades like this, immediate reaction. I hear so many different opinions. Is this an indictment of James Cook? I think how can it not be an indictment of James Cook? They spent a second round pick on the guy for this exact role. They go into a bye week. They come out of the bye week. They give James Cook an opportunity. Now, I'm not saying the Bills are right or they're wrong. James Cook looked fine to me. He averaged 7 yards a carry. I know we don't care about yards per carry, but he looked good doing it. He had a 40-yard catch and run,
Yep.
right, where he looked fast and explosive. But we don't know how the Bills feel about him. Maybe he is a terrible pass blocker. Maybe they just don't trust him between the tackles. So, moving forward, to me, it would be James Cook kind of on the back burner going forward here, and Nyheim Hines. I don't know what's going to happen here. Obviously, rostering him out, it's an excitement level because he could be. They've wanted this type back for a year now, and he could be kind of the missing piece to what they've been wanting to do. What does that mean? We don't know yet. But if you get an injury to Singletary, I think that Hines is definitely the next man up, and I think he's definitely better than Singletary is, more explosive. I mean, even watching Nyheim Hines versus Jonathan Taylor, I know Taylor isn't. You can just tell Taylor's not back to 100%, but just when he's on the field, Hines is so much more explosive. And so, like you said, that slot role is up for grabs. Hines has played that role. I think he's also going to help in special teams too. I guess he's a great punt returner, and so the Bills certainly don't hate that. But I think it's exciting for Nyheim Hines moving forward. Draft Sharks has him the number 34 ranked running back going into the week. So if that means anything to people.
In the deep end leagues, I mean, he's owned, and he's somebody you're playing only on a bye week, or if Taylor's out when he was with Indianapolis. Now, I think he's still the same thing. I think he has mostly the same value as this player with the Bills. Very rude of you to not acknowledge Duke Johnson as the best running back on the Bills, because of course he is. But then I would say maybe Hines. But Hines will never be every down. I mean, he's just never been that. And that is reminiscent of Cook. And this is going to sound worse than I mean it to, but I've said it before about the Cook pick. I think they were kind of just like out of ideas. And they even traded down twice before taking Cook. And that is not the Bills GM, Brandon Beane's style. He's been trading up. Yep. I mean, some of those picks were Cody Ford, like they were unfortunate, but he's aggressive. He likes to add picks underneath and then use them to help him move up. And with James Cook, he's like, okay, I'll trade down again. Okay, I'll trade down again. In round 2, teams do not do that.
For a guy they want, right?
For a guy they want, unless they are like the Ravens, unless they are a team that that's their foundation. And the Bills, for all the credit they get and deserve, are definitely not that when it comes to the draft. So I think Cook was a little bit like, okay. I mean, he'll never be the 3-down back either in Buffalo. You said it very well, I think. How could it not be an indictment on him? And as far as this Bills team goes, you and I know it very well. That's not the point anyway this year. The point is to win a championship.
Correct.
And if you decide you want to spend a draft pick on a guy who's reliable as a pass-catching back, even in the slot and on punt returns, okay, because that's not an area where the Bills are really good.
Right.
So I like it from that standpoint, but I don't think Hines is really much different in fantasy or ever has much of a chance to be, even with injuries the rest of the way. With Indianapolis, we had that one opportunity when they played Denver on Thursday night to see what that would look like. And then he got concussed on the first series.
I know, brutal.
So never
So
found out.
brutal.
Got to appreciate Frank Reich telling us all to draft him with no context at all. There's a guy who does not watch the
That's
deep
right.
end, but maybe next year I'll have more time.
Oh, yikes.
All right. Miami, first, Chase Edmonds to Denver. I think that's entirely about contract.
Yeah.
Miami needed the room, and maybe Denver sees Edmonds. Denver's been through so many guys. You know, he probably is active and maybe plays that third down role. I mean, Melvin Gordon can do that, but the GM today said he's our starter. So I don't know. I don't even know if I care what Denver does.
Right, exactly. I think all the talk on Twitter today was excited for Edmonds to the moon, all this stuff. I think it was tongue in cheek. I think that I mean they said today that Gordon would be the co-starter with Latavius Murray, whatever that means, and then Edmonds would be the third down back. So I mean this offense is so scary anyway, scary bad that I don't obviously it's good because Edmonds was dead in Miami. So it's okay, fine. At least to breathe some life, then maybe something could happen. Who knows? Coaches have done crazier things. Maybe they do get him involved in the passing game or something like that. But you're right. I think it was just like a throw in on this trade, a contract type thing. I don't think, Edmonds has life if you own him. But other than that, I wouldn't be excited to even put him anywhere near my starting lineup until we see what Denver really wants to do with him.
Denver wanted a first for Bradley Chubb. They maybe couldn't get it. The Dolphins shrewdly said, "We'll give it to you, but you got to take Edmonds." And that's $8 million, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, that ended up working out, and Denver had the cap space, which is really all they need there. But I don't see any evidence here that necessarily says he's going to matter in their offense, except now that this is not evidence, but that one theory could be they've been so terrible. Why shouldn't they try anything? But in that logic, they would have had Alberto on the field a month ago, and they must have some reason for not wanting to try that. Yeah. So
I know.
Edmonds to Denver.
Edmonds to Denver, big time.
Jeff Wilson to Miami in a separate trade. Miami needs one more guy there, and San Francisco's one too heavy. So this sort of makes sense. Mike McDaniel and Jeff Wilson. I mean, Wilson should be rostered, but it's Mostert.
Yeah, I love this trade for kind of the Dolphins. I love it for Jeff Wilson. I mean, this is why you don't drop running backs, right? We're thinking oh man, there's all these bye weeks and all these injuries, and Christian McCaffrey's there now, and they're going into a bye, and what am I supposed to do with Jeff Wilson? He's we've started him once or twice this year, all that type stuff. So I just think that this is good for him because he knows the offense, right? He knows the coach, and he's behind a guy that has a history of injuries. And so, no, I think it's good for Jeff Wilson. It keeps him rosterable for sure. And so I think that's, it's great. And like I said before, it's hard with these trades because players have to learn new offenses and they got to become familiar with all that stuff. He's going to a really nice offense that he knows really well. And the coach, obviously, it's something about familiarity with these coaches, right? The coach, McDaniels brings in Mostert, he brings in Wilson, right? And so he gets his guys there eventually. And so, good for them. And he's going to have a role probably maybe not a standalone value, but certainly in one of these good handcuff roles where hold on to this guy. And then week 14, Mostert pulls a hamstring and now you've got the starting running back for a really good offense. So if he's available, I would look to pick him up. And if he's not, and if he's on your team, keep him. Elijah Mitchell is kind of another piece here too. I think this means Elijah Mitchell will probably be coming back after the bye. And he'll have some role. I can't see Elijah Mitchell going away. He'll have some role, not a startable role in fantasy, but again, he's an injury away from Christian McCaffrey. Like that could never happen away from being in a really nice offense.
Beautiful, because somebody could have thought was that sarcastic or maybe that wasn't. They don't know.
That's right.
No, nice. Yeah. Mitchell, I think even maybe said next week for him. Well, part of the trade deadline is what doesn't happen. You have Green Bay again, just nothing. Wide receiver, okay, they just couldn't be bothered, I guess, or couldn't bid up high enough. We know those guys too. You have Kareem Hunt. Boy, Adam, Louis G and I have a team in the FFWC
Talk to me.
hashtag Billy Muzio player profiler that is first overall.
Ooh, that's right. Let's go.
And we had Kareem Hunt in our lineup last night, and we took him out for Harrison Bryant
Oh,
because, you know, there's a chance.
right.
Like some teams, I didn't think it was like that bad of a decision. Some teams would dress Kareem Hunt in case there's an injury. Like Dearness Johnson could be number 2, and they have a trade. I mean, Troy Aikman was talking about the Rams, and like it sounded like they knew that was going to happen. 4th round pick is pretty modest. There's money with Hunt, but still, like, it's a former rushing champ. He's not old. I don't know. I bought into the idea that he could just, like a Keenan Allen situation last year in that Thursday night game, where he would be dressed, but why would they need him?
Right.
But that did not happen. And of course, in turn, Harrison Bryant did not even get 1 target, which is just,
so
happens.
stupid.
It's part of fantasy.
Yeah.
So the Packers, Kareem Hunt still in Cleveland. That doesn't change. And the Rams, by the way, themselves, nothing. Maybe Brandon Cooks was going to happen for the Rams. They're not out of draft picks, but that did not happen, or a running back. Let's start with them. So there was a report last week that Cam Akers would be back there. Like, oh, it's all good if he were not traded. And not surprisingly, he was not probably tradable.
Right.
Who rank the guys after Cooper Kupp on the Rams that you want?
Higbee, healthy Higbee, A-Rob.
That's actually working out for you.
It is.
You stuck your neck out on Robinson in the last 2 games. It's been better.
It has been better, and they, if he wouldn't get tackled in the end zone every time he's trying to run a slant route. I mean, they're trying to force him the ball. He had 2 or 3 more end zone targets. Anyways, Ben Skowronek if Cooper Kupp misses a week or something. But yeah, these running backs are gross. Ronnie Rivers, I think, led them in in touches last week. I think they made the right move to not pick up a running back. Their O-line stinks. Like, unless you're going to go get, which isn't the play ever. Look at the Steelers. Well, not that Najee Harris is good, but like, they're like, our O-line stinks. We're going to go get a really good running back, and hopefully that'll fix it. Well, it didn't fix it, but it's not like Najee Harris is good. So that's not an even comparison. But it's not like the Rams went out and got some Christian McCaffrey, even though I think they were looking at him to try to fix their running woes. Their line stinks. So don't go add some above average running back because he's not going to help you. So I don't know. The Rams are in trouble. Their O-line's so bad. Higbee's blocking all the time. And Darrell Henderson's blocking all the time. So, good luck to anyone there outside of Cooper Kupp or my guy A-Rob.
In fantasy, if the Rams were a fantasy team, they would have traded everybody. They can't beat San Francisco. They won it last year. Anybody in fantasy who won your home league last year, the next year you start 3-5. Like, what do you want? You're the smart guy that has the trophy in hand, and then you're getting your draft picks, and everybody's like, look out for Mike. So, like, in fantasy, the Rams would be that team, but they didn't do anything. I don't know who those guys are. I'm joking. I mean, I don't know who the guys in the Rams are that were tradable unless they're like sort of cog players, but they have such a big ego out there, I think. Like, they might not be thinking about how they can't beat the 49ers. They're thinking about how they will beat the Seahawks. And then the NFC is pretty weak. Like, they're probably trying to cobble together, a comeback season. And that's in fantasy. You laugh at that guy, Adam. You sort of roll your eyes at him because he's out there trying to add mediocre players to get into the playoffs and hope to make a run. Let's go. Hopefully we win. Cross our fingers. And that's how you get beat in sports. They did win last year. I think they are a hilarious blueprint for this league.
Yeah.
How they won with those trades, because you almost never do. And they put together a run where they were a 4 seed. They got Kyler Murray in the first round, and that was a disaster. They sucked out against Tampa Bay with that last catch to Kupp. That wasn't an accident, but they were kind of lucky there. The 49er game, and then the Super Bowl against Cincinnati. Come on, are they a favorite on their home field against Buffalo, Kansas City? No, but they get the Bengals, and they pull that out by a field goal too. And now they're like, people are talking today that the trade deadline is fun because of the Rams.
Yeah.
because they won. So teams are trying to make trades. Like, just how dumb is that? If that's right, then it's the NFL we thought we knew, because, like, come on, that's so bad. Anyway,
Yeah, but I think some of those trades, I'm trying to remember. Ramsey was a preseason trade. Stafford was a preseason trade. Like, it's hard to like trade in season. Was Beckham in season?
Beckham was signed. Beckham was cut by the Browns. Then he was signed a few days later. Then they went to Seattle on Thursday night. 2 days after that, and Robert Woods tore his knee.
That's right. Yep. So that was in season.
There's so much luck in the Rams' victory.
I know.
Not that a guy getting hurt like that is luck, but it made room for Beckham. People talk about him in Buffalo and other places. Like, you have to make room for that guy, and the Rams did, because they had an injury.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that earlier when we were talking about Nyheim Hines. And you were, I think the fact the Bills didn't add a receiver, which I've liked to see them do. I think, there's a short list, right? That the Chiefs already added a receiver. I don't think Beckham wants to go back to the Rams, even though they really need something there, but they don't look very good. I mean, how many teams would Beckham even want to go to at this point? I think Beckham is on, and I've heard, the same stuff you've heard, like it's, behind closed doors, they're locked in for November. So we'll see about that. But I think it makes complete sense now for Beckham and for the Bills.
Rest of season, Nyheim Hines or AJ Dillon?
Oh, AJ Dillon. But I would start Nyheim Hines. If everyone's healthy, I would start Nyheim Hines over AJ Dillon. But AJ Dillon has a chance to be a top 10 back, whereas I don't think Nyheim Hines does.
Right. Nyheim Hines or Najee?
This is so gross. Najee. But that's not saying a lot.
You start Najee the rest of the way, you're like, hey, how was I to know?
Right.
And then you're lost. You pay your entry fee next year and ask that question at the draft.
Oh, brutal.
How was I to know?
Yep.
All right, Adam. What's left that we didn't cover that you want to bring up? Anything?
I don't know. We have a trade question here. If you want me to pop it up, it looks kind of complicated. But let's see.
Oh my goodness.
PPR,
What
2 keeper league. Williams IR. I think it's Javonte. Bateman and Thomas injured. Judy and Lamb on buys. Mooney starting at receiver. Herbert, Hines. Is that
Rashad White.
Rashad White. Hockenson on the bench. Who do I drop to pick up? A-Rob, Dobbs, Palmer, or Woods? So I think they want to pick up one of those guys.
This guy needs somebody to start.
Yeah. So he wants to pick up A-Rob. Right. Who do I drop to pick up A-Rob, Dobbs, Palmer, or Woods? I would drop.
It can't be Javonte Williams. Is it Mike Williams?
It's a keeper league, so it might be Javonte. Oh, you're saying like?
Oh, if it's
it could
keeper.
Be. Yeah.
I'd cut Javonte Williams anyway.
Oh, don't you dare! I would trade him.
When does he? What do you get next year from Javonte Williams?
That is a great question. I don't know. I have him in a dynasty league. I'm trying to trade him right now to you.
Yeah,
so
I don't know. I shot that down. I have no use for Javonte. I don't even have use for Breece Hall next year. What's that look like?
It is Mike Williams. He just responded. It is my Mike Williams. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm not drafting Mike Williams, or rather cutting. I am drafting Mike Williams, not cutting Mike Williams.
I don't want to drop any of these guys. I mean, I would almost rather, Bateman. If I had to pick, it would be Bateman.
Bateman's probably another 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks. That's different than a bye week guy. Thomas could play this week. You don't want to do anything until you find out about that.
Right. And then Palmer might be a great start this week. Dobbs, who do they get? They get
Green Bay, Detroit.
They get the Lions. Great. I mean, that's a great matchup, especially if Dobbs is the only really healthy guy there. You know how I feel about A-Rob. So any of those guys would be good additions. But man, I would hate to really cut. I like to, especially running. As soon as I see a running back, I always go past it because I don't ever want to drop a running back, especially a guy like Rashad White. So it would be Bateman for me, because again, even moving forward, he's not the number one there. You got Andrews there. I think Bateman's good, but it might just be one of these careers that just gets derailed early with injury after injury after injury. And I think if you need to win this week, I would pick up one of those guys, but I would even try not to do that.
Who's his starting tight end if Hawkinson is on his bench?
Don't know.
Like, a lot of these leagues with one tight end, if not tight end premium, you don't need two. If you've got somebody better than Hawkinson, probably some adjustment period there. Maybe try to trade Hawkinson today.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right.
Like somebody could be hot for him today. And if he's your second best tight end, there's got to be teams in your league that are lost at that position.
He says he has, or he or she says he has, it's Jihang, and he has Andrews and Lamar on his team. So Bateman's really a handcuff. And now that I'm reading this deeper, it's a 2-keeper league. So you can only keep 2 guys. So now
you're never going to start Hawkinson if you have Andrews.
Right.
Except
that's true too.
Their bye week is week 10. So you have that to consider, but you could stream somebody that week. Try to trade them.
Yeah. Pull out some trade. That's the fun of these keeper leagues. Wheel and deal, baby. Wheel and deal.
Oh, so true. Okay. Well, we're on a day early. Thanks for fitting us in.
What a day. What a day with all the trading going on. I love it. I love what it's become.
Any waiver thoughts? I mean, usually we're on Wednesdays. We're talking about some of the pickups.
Yeah.
I looked some today because I'm traveling tomorrow, and I didn't see a lot.
I didn't want to do a ton of bids today because I knew that I think some of that could get blown up by trades or whatever. Terrace Marshall is worth a pickup.
I like that.
I think they're trying to get him more involved. So I would certainly look into that.
You mentioned James Mitchell.
Yeah, James Mitchell. We don't know what they're going to do at tight end there, but we might find out soon. Whether it's going to be Mitchell. I'm trying to remember the other
Rock
one.
Wright.
There you go, Rock Wright. Perfect. Thank you.
Bare knuckle.
How are you doing in the bare knuckle, though? By the way,
7th.
Oh,
Adam, I'm running cold. Like
it's running cold.
Elijah Moore, Penny Akers, James Cook. I went for value, and it's who you can think of, right?
I know.
Sterling Shepard. I love that pick. He catches a 65-yard touchdown in the first game. They have no other wide receivers. Tears his knee up. McBride is not. Maybe that was sort of you could have gotten that McBride's just not going to play at all. That coach was so mad at him when he had a penalty in the game in Minnesota, Kingsbury. That team is Andrews, Alberto, and McBride. So that can be like last 2 weeks has been like a 0. I'm trying. I'm not dead, but it's gotta get exciting here pretty soon. Because I really like how that went, and I'm in the middle. Just Elijah Moore, Metcalf at least.
There you go. At least he's
round 6,
doing all right when he's not getting carted off for having to go to the bathroom.
Josh, it's the fate that awaits any best ball team. I mean, just whatever. Like pros versus Joes, we did, and that's Hollywood Brown. That team so badly needed Hollywood Brown to make it, and then he goes away. And maybe also Penny and just different injuries. It's only one person can win. The Draft Sharks Invitational. If we're talking, by the way, did you ask anything about the Draft Sharks?
I did. Wednesdays it comes out. Wednesdays.
Every other.
Maybe we can make an exception if Mike show up at the deep end isn't first.
I don't know what place I'm in, and I won't know. I guess for 8 days.
Listen, I got to get on Smola to do this because I'm getting 12 DMs a day from these guys because they're so excited. But
I had 220 this week. I had
down week.
Yeah. I had 211 sitting on Chubb, and Chubb had to top Kenyon Drake, who had 16.7. He easily did.
Yeah.
So I didn't end up using Drake or Dobbs or Curtis Samuel, guys who had good games. Like it was a perfect week, 220 points. So I have to admit, I went and texted Zach Kruger, who was our guest last week because he was in second.
Yep.
And he and I started talking, like, how'd you do? And I felt bad because it came out. Eventually, he knew I was asking him because I had done well. And like, oh, my God. And so he's so nice. He goes, how did the first place guy do, Scuderi? And I said, I don't know. I don't know him. And he said, well, he blocked me. Like, what did you ever do to have him block you? He was like, I have no idea, but he blocked.
He didn't like Columbini's pizza.
There's a scoop.
That's what it was. That's what it was. He doesn't like the Columbini's.
if John
Pizza.
Scuderi is somebody who watches the deep end, and maybe it just happened innocently, because I think that can happen. Zach misses having you in his audience, and
Yes.
he doesn't understand what happened there. So maybe we could do a Dr. Phil sort of thing and bring these two guys together.
I'm game for that.
But I
Speaking of two
texted
guys,
Zach, and I
sorry, go
texted,
ahead.
sorry, Adam, I texted Zach and I texted Billy, and because Billy was second or third a couple times when we talked about the Draft Sharks, and he had a good week. But I don't know the standings, like 225 or whatever I had. I'm up by 100 in the group. It looks good.
Yeah, no, it looks. This week was so much fun. Week 8 was so much fun for fantasy. A lot of stuff made sense. Week 9 is going to be atrocious for everybody. Just six bye weeks. Come on, what are we doing? Just skip it make it an all play week. Skip it for everybody. But real quick before we go, Josh Palmer and DeAndre Carter, if those guys are on your waivers also, with Mike Williams being out for weeks and Keenan Allen, who knows what's going on with him? I mean, he was back last week, but he didn't do anything. He's also old, and so Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, if they're thoroughly available, those are more guys I'd be looking to add.
Austin Eckler on a podcast with Matthew Berry was asked, who's the pickup? Matthew Berry sort of pressured him. Who's the pickup with Williams out? And he said, Palmer.
Oh, love that info.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like I believe Eckler. He seems trustable.
If you can't believe Eckler on a receiver on his team, who can you believe? Can't believe us if you can't believe Eckler.
Who's the number 2 running back you want to have on your teams of the Chargers?
Sony Michel right now. I think.
It? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love it, but unless again, coming out of a bye week, you get the rookie.
That's my answer.
Yeah, sure. I could absolutely see it. I could certainly see it. So, but the guy hasn't, he's even suited up. The guy hasn't done anything all.
I know, right?
Year, so.
And Kelly's
somebody
out 2 more
get
games.
them all, get a piece. Josh Kelly's hurt, but get a piece because Eckler is Eckler's due. Eckler's due for a rest week.
Do you have Damian Williams on teams?
I do have Damian Williams, and
so I see sharp players pushing for Damian Williams. Like, what's the scenario? Patterson is back.
Right.
Algier, Huntley, Avery Williams is the name. Like,
yeah.
Is there really a scenario where Damian Williams plays a usable role for the Falcons?
Again, you never drop running backs, but it's like I mean, I was hoping for something from him before Cordarrelle Patterson got back. So if you have him and you don't have anyone to pick up, just leave him and see what happens. But I think Cordarrelle Patterson is going to be the guy. I think this week, is he back? I know he's eligible to come off the IR this week, but
he's eligible and he was practicing. Like, he looked like there was a report that the plan was week 9. Who do they have?
Perfect. I don't know. Falcons. Oh, where are we? What are we in?
It's a race. Come on, Mike.
9. I'm so bad at this. Oh, of course, I'm on the receiver ranking, so I'm never going to find anything with the Falcons. The Chargers.
Those teams have never played.
There you go. Ever?
Ever.
What does that mean?
It's a running joke on WGR. When you have 2 teams where you cannot possibly remember a single thing that ever happened between them, the joke is they never played. I know it's hilarious. The Chargers and the Falcons. Come on, I actually mean it now. They've never played against each other in history.
Ever. Never one time.
Right?
Never once.
Can you possibly think of a moment that ever happened between the Falcons and the Chargers?
I can't think of a moment that's ever happened with James Conner. I mean, there's another guy.
That sounded personal.
Where's he been? Shelf, call me. Tell me where James Conner's been.
He's on other people's rosters.
Ugh.
That's where he's hiding.
Unreal.
On Matt's teams.
Him and Michael Thomas.
I don't mean that disparagingly. He's good when he's out there.
Right. Let's get him out there. Come on.
Let's get him out there. That's right. On that note, have a good week 9. Hope you had a nice Halloween. Deep End de los Muertos signing off. Day of the Dead. Mike Shope, Adam Krautwurst at Deep End FF1. Here for your questions and comments. We hope you watch and listen and like it or don't like it. That's how I was raised. In radio, they always tell you it doesn't matter whether you're liked. It just matters whether they listen.
That's perfect.
So I don't think really Adam would say the same, but
no.
Either way, watch, listen, enjoy, hate it, whatever you want to do. See you next week. Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll figure it out and tweet it on the Deep End. Enjoy your night.
Yes.